Larry Bird was not passed on by one team. He was passed on by five. In the 1978 NBA draft, Portland, Kansas City, Indiana, New York, and Golden State all had a shot at Bird, and every one of them backed away. The logic sounded reasonable at the time. Bird had not finished college yet, and drafting him early meant waiting a full year to sign him. If he refused, that pick was gone. That fear pushed everyone else away. Boston did the opposite. Red Auerbach accepted the gamble, took Bird sixth, and held his exclusive rights until 1979. Then Bird signed a 5-year, $3.25 million contract, making him the highest-paid rookie in sports at that point. The damage showed up immediately. As a rookie, Bird averaged 21.3 points and 10.4 rebounds per game. Boston jumped from 29 wins to 61. That was not a solid draft pick. That was a franchise resurrection. 5 teams avoided a 1-year risk, then watched Boston steal an entire era because they were willing to wait. If the Larry Bird story was a bad decision driven by fear, the Joe Smith story was worse. This was a team trying to outsmart the system and assuming nobody would catch it. In 1999, Joe Smith could have made more than $5 million per year on the open market. Instead, the Timberwolves signed him to a strangely low deal, somewhere between $1.75 and $2.2 million. That was not random. That was the plan. According to what later surfaced, Minnesota and Smith's side had a secret agreement. Smith would take a series of short-term, below-market contracts first. Then once the team had enough cap flexibility and could use his bird rights, they would pay him with a much bigger long-term deal. On paper, everything looked controlled. Off paper, it was a promise of future compensation, exactly the kind of thing the NBA prohibits. Once written evidence of the arrangement came out during a legal dispute, the league dropped the hammer. The Timberwolves lost 5 first-round picks and were fined $3.5 million. Smith's contract was voided and he was pushed back into free agency. The timing made it even worse. Kevin Garnett was in his prime. Minnesota did not just get punished. They damaged their own ability to build around the best player the franchise had. Jalen Brunson did not put Dallas in an impossible spot. If anything, he gave them a very easy exit. Brunson was eligible for a 4-year extension worth roughly $55 million, and by all accounts, he was ready to sign it. He even said publicly that he wanted to stay in Dallas. The Mavericks still did not move. They were going through changes in coaching in the front office, and instead of locking in the number early, they decided to wait. That was the moment everything started slipping away. During the 2021-22 season, Brunson averaged 16.3 points and 4.8 assists per game, both career highs at the time. Then the playoffs arrived. With Luka out, Brunson had multiple breakout performances, and his market value exploded in a matter of weeks. By the time New York came in during the summer of 2022 with a 4-year, $104 million contract, Dallas was already too late. They had bird rights and theoretically could have paid more. But they no longer controlled the situation. A player they could have kept for $55 million walked out for nearly double that, and Dallas got absolutely nothing back. In most draft mistakes, you can at least argue that a team misread upside. Sacramento passing on Luka Doncic felt worse than that because so much evidence was already sitting right in front of them. In 2018, the Kings held the second pick. Luka was only 19, but he had already won the EuroLeague title, earned EuroLeague MVP, and played real professional basketball for Real Madrid. This was not some mystery prospect who required imagination. He was already proven against grown men. Sacramento still chose Marvin Bagley III. Bagley had a strong college season at Duke, but Luka's resume was broader, heavier, and much harder to dismiss. The real problem was that the Kings seemed to convince themselves they did not need another ball handler next to De'Aaron Fox. They looked at roster fit instead of the biggest talent on the board. Dallas wasted no time. They moved into the 3rd spot and took Luka immediately. Very quickly, he became the center of an entire franchise, while Bagley drifted away from star status. Sacramento did not just pass on a good prospect. They passed on a player who should have been too obvious to miss. Sometimes a team does not make the wrong decision. It just gets wrecked by someone else changing theirs at the last possible second. That is exactly what happened to Dallas in the summer of 2015. DeAndre Jordan had verbally agreed to join the Mavericks on a 4-year, $80 million deal. Dallas cleared cap space, reshaped its roster plans, and treated him like the new anchor in the middle. They basically built their entire offseason around that commitment. The problem was that none of it had been signed yet. The NBA was still in its moratorium period, the window where agreements can be made, but contracts still carry no legal force. And inside that gap, everything flipped. Chris Paul, Blake Griffin, and Doc Rivers flew to meet Jordan in Houston. During that stretch, Dallas could not even reach him directly. Once the waiting period ended, Jordan backed out and re-signed with the Clippers on a bigger deal, 4 years and $88 million. Dallas did not just lose a player. It lost an entire offseason plan because it trusted a commitment that was never actually binding. Not every bad draft pick leaves a permanent scar, but Detroit taking Darko Milicic second overall in 2003 absolutely did, because right behind him were Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, and Dwyane Wade, 3 players who went on to define an era of NBA basketball. Darko never came close. On paper, Detroit thought it had reasons to believe. Darko was young, already playing professionally in Europe, and viewed as a high-upside big man with serious long-term potential. The problem was the team that drafted him. The Pistons were already real contenders. That was not the ideal environment for a slow development project, especially under Larry Brown, a coach who was famously reluctant to trust rookies with meaningful minutes. Detroit still won the title in 2004, so the pick did not destroy that season. But long-term, it became one of the most painful what-ifs in draft history. They had the chance to add a real superstar to a team that was already strong enough to win, and instead they used the second pick on a player who never came close to matching the weight of that spot. Some bad decisions happen in boardrooms, some happen on draft night. J.R. Smith's happened in the middle of the NBA Finals in front of the whole world, and it only took a few seconds to become unforgettable. Game 1 of the 2018 Finals. Cleveland and Golden State were tied 107-107. George Hill hit the first free throw and missed the second. The ball came off the rim. J.R. Smith grabbed the offensive rebound. That was the moment. A quick putback or a fast pass could have changed the entire game. Instead, J.R. did not shoot. He did not make the immediate pass either. He dribbled away from the basket almost like he was trying to burn the clock. That was the real shock. After the game, the explanation made it even worse. He believed Cleveland was already ahead. In a tied finals game in the most important live possession of the night, he misread the score. LeBron scored 51 points that night, one of the greatest finals performances ever. J.R.'s mistake swallowed all of it. The game went to overtime. The Warriors won. Cleveland got swept. A few seconds changed the whole series. If there is one draft decision that has basically become a symbol for picking the wrong guy, it is Portland taking Sam Bowie over Michael Jordan in 1984. Houston selected Hakeem Olajuwon first, and that made complete sense. But then Portland came up and they did not take Jordan. They chose Bowie, a 7'1" center out of Kentucky, mostly because they believed their roster already had enough guards and badly needed size. The problem is that logic only worked on paper. Bowie had talent, no question, but he had also missed major time in 2 of his previous 3 college seasons because of leg injuries. Portland knew that and still made the pick. Jordan was sitting right there, waiting to become the greatest player the sport had ever seen. The gap showed up almost immediately. Jordan won Rookie of the Year and quickly became the center of the league. Bowie kept getting dragged down by injuries. This was not just a bad draft choice. It became the classic example of a team staring at positional need and missing the clearest superstar on the board. Some teams fall apart because of injuries. Some fall apart because of conflict. Oklahoma City broke up its own future mostly because of money. In 2012, the Thunder had just reached the NBA Finals. Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Serge Ibaka, and James Harden were all still young. Harden had just won 6th Man of the Year, and that core looked like the kind of machine that could own the West for years. Then just days before the 2012-13 season, Oklahoma City traded Harden to Houston. The real reason was not basketball. It was payroll structure. The Thunder were already paying big money to Durant, Westbrook, and Ibaka, and Harden's next contract would have pushed them deep into luxury tax territory. Instead of keeping the core that had just made the finals, they cut it apart before the bill got bigger. Houston got exactly what it needed, a new offensive engine. Harden quickly became an MVP, a scoring champion, and one of the best offensive players of his era. Oklahoma City stayed good, but it never got back to the finals with that group. That is what makes this decision so brutal. They did not miss the future. They had it in their hands and let it go. The Nets sent multiple unprotected first-round picks to Boston for Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and Jason Terry. On the surface, the plan was obvious: go all in and win immediately. The problem was the age of the stars they were buying. Pierce was 35. Garnett was 37. Brooklyn's window was far smaller than the price it paid to open it. And once that group failed to reach the finals, the long-term damage started showing up year by year. Boston did not just get picks. Boston got control of Brooklyn's future. Those assets later became the foundation of a whole new era. Jaylen Brown, the chain that helped lead to Jason Tatum. One team rushed to buy a title run, then accidentally gave a division rival the raw material to build a contender for years. This was not just a failed trade. It was a dynasty transfer disguised as desperation. That is why these decisions still haunt the NBA. Not just because they were wrong, but because in so many of these moments, the warning signs were already there and someone still made the move anyway.